Hi, good day to everybody. I am Bonnie Watson Coleman, and I am the U.S. representative of the 12th Congressional District in New Jersey. I have the pleasure of having 5 amazing young women on with me today who are going to speak about the importance of standing up for what you believe in, the significance of organizing around the issues that are important, that are going to advance our collective communities, and how they have embraced and led under the banners of Black Lives Matter. And so I'm going to give them an opportunity to say a few things about themselves. I want them to tell you their name, their location, where they're from, and what they're doing right now, in addition to standing up and representing our collective interests in the demonstrations that take place. So I'm going to start with KAYLA, because I see her up to my left.
Okay. Hello. My name is KAYLA PHILLIPS. I am from the Trenton, New Jersey area. I graduated from Hampton University in 2018. Currently, I work for the state. I work for homeless management, so housing and the homeless and everything like that. So that's what I do outside of everything. And yes.
That's good. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Lucinda?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucinda CONTEH. I am a senior business management major at Virginia State University, currently holding the title of the 92nd Miss Virginia State University. And I'm from Ewing, and I am currently interning with TD Bank remotely from home.
Great to have you. Did you say you're Miss Virginia State?
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. I've not really been in the company of a crowned individual.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good to have you here. Let us now talk to JAIME.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is JAIME SUAREZ. I am a rising sophomore at St. Peter's University, majoring in communications and political science. And currently, I am working with a couple of other organizers from Plainfield, New Jersey, to create a youth organization, our own grassroots movement called Plainfield Youth for Change.
Plainfield, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. And we have KYLA.
KYLA.
KYLA, I'm sorry, KYLA.
It's okay. Hi,
I'm looking right at it too.
I'm from Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and I graduated from St. John's University in 2019. I recently just started my first full-time job working from home for Freedom Mortgage. It's pretty cool so far. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this and to have been involved with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything this revolution is now, so.
Thank you, it's awesome, thank you. And last but certainly not least is DESIREE. Hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Desiree McCrae Clark. I'm from the Ewing, New Jersey area. I'm currently a rising senior at William Patterson University. I'm a business major. And currently I'm really not doing much, just trying to educate myself more and see what our next steps are.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to be with me, and thank you for what you're going to talk to me about, because of what we've been seeing, the consistency, the persistency, the insistency of the demonstrations, particularly those since Mr. Floyd's death, and even recognizing Breonna Taylor and even others whose names we're not necessarily as familiar with. I think that this is a moment of big change and big opportunity. And so you all have loaned your talents and organizational skills and abilities to Black Lives Matter in your respective areas. I wanted to hear specifically from you all, how did you get involved? How did you get involved with Black Lives Matter? What has been your experience in trying to organize people to come out and to demonstrate and to hopefully do other things like register to vote and things of that nature? What has been sort of your experience? Why don't we start it in a reverse order and start with Desiree and then go to KYLA?
So yeah, our experience has kind of been wild. I know my friend Lucinda and I, when we like were hearing about all the demonstrations, you know, at first it kind of started as like a little joke, like, oh, maybe we should have one in Ewing. And then the next day she called me and said, yeah, I called everybody up and that's we're having one next Monday. And I said, okay, well, sounds like we're having one next Monday. And you know, we have had like a little experience in the past. We did a small protest in 2016 in Ewing, and you know that didn't gain as much traction. We marched around, and there was about like 25 people, so we weren't expecting that much people. But when we saw the turnout, it was great. And you know, our most important message was, you know, if we want change, we have to do something to try and make that change. That's why we're really pushing for voter registration in the census. And we were pushing to, you know, not only just march and, you know, think about those who have lost their lives to police brutality, but what can we do next? Because we didn't want this to stop. We wanted this to keep going.
Why don't, instead of going to KYLA, let me go to Lucinda, since you and Lucinda seem to be buds in this. And Sherry.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
Backtracking off of what Desiree said, like she said, it was kind of like something that we've done before, so we decided to do it again on a larger scale. We received a lot of help from different community leaders, reached out to a lot of people, and our demonstration, I want to say our crowd was near 600 people, which is really surprising because we weren't expecting that many people to come out. We had printed out voter registration QR codes that'll take people to petition links, different funds they can donate to, and different ways that they can help. We wanted to say that even though we come from a small township in New Jersey, we have a lot to say, and we still have a say. We want to show our solidarity with everything that's going on, because at the end of the day, it affects all of us.
So where did you have your demonstration?
At Moody Park in Ewing.
That's what I thought. Yeah. KYLA, how did you get involved, and where have you been organizing and demonstrating?
I initially got involved I reached out to my friend Jada and asked her if she wanted to go to a protest in Philadelphia. And she was like, no, it's kind of far. I want to know if there's any around here. We hadn't heard of any, so we were like, okay, let's organize one. So we reached out to KAYLA as well, and then the three of us together put together a Black Solidarity Day in Trenton. And similar to what Lucinda said, like after seeing the turnout, it just motivated us to keep doing more, because we didn't want it to just be that. We want to keep pushing for change. So that's kind of how I got involved. I just couldn't sleep at night, and you know, so we said, let's organize, like, let's do something about it.
Just had to respond in some way, do something. Yeah. How about you, KAYLA?
Oh, yeah, well, just what KYLA said. We both worked on the Trenton protest. We only had we posted the flyer up 2 days before the actual event. So we didn't know what to expect. It was blowing up. And so we're like, okay, we'll just get there early. And people were reaching out to us, you know, where do we put the water? Where do we, where do we start off first, you know, when people have to gather? So, we mapped out the route. We did it in downtown Trenton. So we mapped out the route, and then we did our march. And afterwards we did a whole, public speaking. People could speak to others if they wanted to, and then they want to march again. So it was pretty interesting, and it was a little overwhelming at times, because we did have over 1,500 people there. So it was a little overwhelming, but I think we did a pretty good job for just us three, because we didn't really have community leaders help us, because like I said, we organized it in 2 days. Mm-hmm. So I think we did a pretty good job to only have 2 days, and it's just the three of us. So,
well, it just seems like this is a moment where people are willing to get engaged if they're just given the opportunity.
Right.
This is a very different moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you, Jamie? Because you're up in Plainfield, right?
Correct. Yes. So me and a couple of friends from my hometown decided to organize our own Black Lives Matter protest at our city. We had it on June 13th at City Hall. And And it was definitely a very impactful experience. We had 2 weeks of preparation. We sent out flyers. I contacted the press. I sent out newsletters, invitation letters. I contacted freeholders, and we just try to make connections and people from our area and cities from outside of Plainfield as well. And I was already aware of police brutality even before these whole demonstrations of George Floyd were happening. Ever since I think I was fully, I became aware with the incident of Michael Brown in Ferguson. I was only 14 at the time, so I didn't really know exactly how to help, let alone to use my voice. So it really wasn't until the demonstrations that were happening recently that me and a couple of high school friends decided that we wanted to organize this. We wanted to show solidarity in our community and to move forward and fight against injustice and spread awareness to the community.
And I'm not going to call on you individually. I'll let you just jump in to answer the question the best way when you want to. How did you know who to reach out to, number one? And number two is what organizations in particular or entities in particular were helpful in getting out the word to support you? And this is for every and anybody that wants to respond to it. I'm going to pick.
Well, I reached out to KAYLA. Me and Jay reached out to KAYLA specifically because we've had so many conversations about this. And previously, last year, we actually did a web series called Soul Sessions about just talking about Black issues and, trying to come up with solutions for some of the things going on specifically in our community in Trenton. So it kind of felt like a no-brainer to reach out to her. And hopefully we'll be able to continue doing things like that to keep the conversation going, even if it's not organizing, like doing video series or whatever it may be.
That's great. Who did you pick? How did you know who to reach out to? What did your invitation list look like? Just people that you knew, people that you had emails for or on Facebook or Instagram with? How did you do the outreach?
Social media, Instagram, yeah.
Instagram, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of.
One thing. Go ahead.
You sure? You can go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. I would say one thing that me and Desiree, I can speak for both of us when I say is that we're both like heavily involved with our community. So we know a lot of people that work for the school board or people who are involved in different aspects because we've done a lot of auxiliary programs growing up. We were both like in culture pros or SEND. We know a lot of people who work in different branches of the community. So we have these resources that we have had at our hands and at our dispense since high school that we can, well, even back to elementary school, people that we can reach out to that we know that, okay, this person can contact this person so that we can get these things together. And our community played a big part in helping us. Like a lot of people came together to help us and donated all kinds of things and help.
I'm going to ask you about that in a little while, about how can other people help you all and donate when you are anticipating doing something else. One of the things that's impressed me about the protests after George Floyd's death is that they've been so diverse. It's been Black, white, Latino, Asian, South Asian, every kind of mixture of people you want to see, young, old, in between. Did you find that also when you all were trying to organize to have a demonstration in your areas, that people were willing to engage even if they weren't Black and young?
Yeah, absolutely. I know specifically me and Jada, after we organized in Trenton, we had a lot of people in Lawrenceville reaching out to us and saying, are we going to do more? Are we doing another event? And we had even just a lot of our peers reaching out saying they wanted to help organize another event. So we actually did one in Lawrenceville a week later, and that was really interesting. The turnout was huge. And in a suburban town like that, it's kind of almost surreal to have like that. I didn't even realize so many people had never protested or done anything like that before. But I think that's just as important as, being in big cities, because racism is everywhere. And if we really want to combat white supremacy at the roots, we have to do it in every community. So I think it's really big that we have this kind of momentum from all kinds of people.
I think the persistency in the movement and the protests has been very significant as well, because it's not like everybody just came out for 1 week and protested and then went back into their homes. It's like, no, we're going to stay here till we see the change. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, sitting, in Washington, D.C., so to speak, as a member of Congress, I don't think that the Justice and Policing Act would have moved as quickly had we not seen the protests around the country. And I know that the Congressional Black Caucus in particular is working on jobs and justice, looking beyond what this emergency situation required us to respond to, but looking to the future and some of the policies and the legislation and the practices that sort of institutionalized racism, so that we got to the point that we are, not just with police, but in other institutions as well. So you all have done a remarkable thing, actually, and you need to know that. And even in our smaller communities, the people that have shown up, the number of people that have shown up in Lawrence Township, in Ewing Township in particular, has been very, very impressive. Very impressive. Two of you, and I don't quite remember which two said that you protested in 2016. Was that after the Parkland shootings?
I believe it was after Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Mike Brown. So around that time period where it was kind of like a resurgence after what had already happened with Trayvon Martin back in 2012.
Okay, so tell me, what was different about this incident this time that has resulted in just weeks on weeks of big protests around the country? Even around the world, there have been people protesting in support of, what you've been standing for. What's different about this time?
I believe the all-around vibe, I don't know if that's the best way to put it, like just the energy and the force and the motivation from, I think even being in the house for 3 months, we are kind of like sick and tired in a different type of way. Like it brought out a lot more energy for people to realize, okay, enough is enough. At some point, change has to come, whether we have to take it or they're just going to give it to us. Just a lot of people are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like it comes to a point where it's so disheartening. You look on the news every day, you're seeing all these different Black people innocently murdered. Their murderers are getting away and taking paid time off. It's just kind of like disrespectful in a way to us and our struggle and what we go through. So like I said, like enough was enough.
To be in the middle of a pandemic, it's enough.
Yeah, I think people were just fed up.
Go ahead, KAYLA. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think people were just fed up. I know I was fed up. This wasn't just George Floyd's, it wasn't just solely about him. Like it was about all the past situations. It's like, when is this gonna stop? Like what more do we have to do for you guys to realize that what you're doing isn't right? Like what do we have to do? I think people, like you said, we've been in the inside the house for months now, and it's just like, oh my gosh, we're looking at the video over and over and over on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it's just like people started talking, you know what, we should just do something. Protest. So I think it was more so it just reached the boiling point.
And I also think the support that we got from other communities helped as well. This time, I know like back in 2016, our protests, we had it like mid-August, and I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'm like moving back to school at this time, and like, oh, I'm doing these other things, I'm like really, really busy, I can't come. But I think now, like, she said, like with like coronavirus being in the house, but also I think from then to now, people from other communities, whether like white, Hispanic, Asian, they're also seeing like what we're going through, and I think they're starting to actually really understand, where back then it was kind of just like, oh, well, you never knew, maybe he was a thug.
They were like isolated.
Those excuses were always coming up. Right. But I think especially now they're opening their eyes and they're realizing like this isn't just, a person by person issue. It's a systemic problem that needs to be addressed.
And that's an interesting issue because it doesn't just affect Black folks. It affects brown as well as Black. And I mean, Jaime, I wanted to reach out to you a little bit. First of all, let me just say this. All of you are women. I wanted to identify the organizers of these demonstrations in the 12th Congressional District. And you all came to the top of the list, and you're all women. And I mean, it doesn't surprise me because I think, you know, women have been taking huge role in organizing and holding folks accountable anyway. But I just wanted to note, for in case anybody sees us on Facebook, let us not escape the fact that this is a women on women discussion, you know? We need allies. We obviously need allies. If we're Black, we need allies. If we're gay, we need allies. If we're Latina, we need allies. And so
Even being a woman.
And being a woman, absolutely, we need allies. And that we need to recognize what's more common among us and to us than is different for us. So, Jaime, in particular, you, what do you think is the value of making sure that we have the kind of diversity, and what sort of prompted you in this moment to stand up and organize this your demonstration? Because you're not a Black woman, but you're definitely an ally. And allies is something that we need to continue to establish. So what is it that was so stunning to you that made you need to do something?
Well, personally speaking, I was also very sick and tired seeing so many people from the Black community, lives being lost and just persecuted by the police. Personally, I feel just so much, it's just like sadness and anger that so many injustices have been going on, and not even just with like police brutality, but we're talking about like 400 years of oppression. And I honestly, I feel that allies are very important, because in order to bring change, we must all, as a collective, as a community, come into solidarity with one another, because this creates like a ripple effect for many. Like was said previously, like this doesn't just affect Black lives, but it also affects brown lives. So definitely, and you've seen this in history too, how people have protested out in the streets, marched consecutive days in order to bring change, making boycotts and protesting. And in the end, they have reaped the benefits of it, although we still have a lot of work to do. But definitely as a union, we must all come together to be able to fight against injustice and, you know, fight for equality. I know personally, as a Latina, I definitely have tried to find ways to, I guess, how do I say this? Because as a Hispanic person, a lot of Hispanics, like, they, not trying to generalize, but because we are also a minority, some people like feel the liberty to, for example, say the N-word in the song. And I'm like, first of all, I know I've had to correct a few of my family members, especially when they make those sort of microaggressions and, you know, show a little bit of like colorist remarks. So definitely by educating family members and friends, people who are not non-Black, is definitely a step forward in order to become anti-racist.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. You know, it is very important that people get to know who we are. Not just what we are, but who we are. And then they realize that we share more in common than we have differences, and that, you know, we come in different shades and we come in different races, but we're all in this together. How many of you were inspired, and I use that word inspired, like you would say motivated, to get engaged because you felt that there was this sort of air of disrespect and disregard and inciting of division coming out of our leadership in Washington, D.C., who will remain nameless on this.
I feel like that definitely plays a big part, because at the end of the day, when you're in those high positions, you're supposed to be doing the work for the people. But when you have people in such high levels in the government that are disrespecting the people who work in this country, who live in this country, and kind of built this country almost, it's very disrespectful. And that makes people angry. It makes people want to loot. It makes people want to riot. It makes people want to protest. It just disrupts everybody and the peace. Like, nobody can have peace if there's no justice.
Do you all find yourselves glued to the news channels more than ever before?
I've been trying not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm definitely trying to pull away.
I try not to.
The media kind of doesn't always play a positive role in what's going on.
Exactly.
Think about how they were covering the protests when there were a lot of rioting going on, and now it's kind of like back to normal. That's not exactly a positive role in the movement. You're just kind of demonizing the protesters instead of...
They have an agenda. The news definitely has an agenda that they try to push, and it's from a very biased perspective. So they kind of shine a light on what they want to shine a light on, when there's so many other things going on. There's so many different movements. Like, there's still so many different protests happening, and they make it seem like it died down, and it hasn't.
Exactly.
Are you all familiar with the Justice and Policing Act that's named after George Floyd, that the House of Representatives just passed?
Yeah, I did see that.
Okay. I would like for you all to look it up. It's a pretty comprehensive piece of legislation that brought together a number of different pieces of legislation around the issue of policing and safe communities and accountability and liability. And it makes things like the chokehold and the carotid depression illegal. It takes away police immunity when they do things like that. You can sue them as well as the agency. It also establishes this national registry where if you've been a police officer and you've been accused and convicted or charged and found to have been in violation of someone's rights of that nature, you'll be on a national registry so that you can't go get a job in another jurisdiction. And I think that, you know, it's not perfect, of course not, but it is. And also there's money to go into community services and training and certifying that the police are eligible to be police officers, things of that nature. So it's not perfect, but it is certainly a huge step forward. It is now over in the Senate. The Senate has tried to introduce a bill that addressed some of the same issues that the House of Representatives did, but had no teeth in it, no consequences. And we all know that if there are no consequences, there's not going to be any change. And so do me a favor and just kind of familiarize yourself with it and realize that that is the response to the emergency that we're having now. But that's not the response to the systemic racism and discrimination and unfairness in all the other areas that have brought us to this point, where people think it is okay to disrespect or disvalue the lives of someone because they're simply African American or Latino or whatever. So do me a favor and do check it out so that, and give me some feedback, because I would like to know, as you look at that, what are some things you think of that we should be moving into in sort of the next stages? But for you,
I wanted to say, speaking off of what you just said with these different laws that are being named after people, it's a great effort, but like, I feel like it also plays a part in mocking the movement, because you have these officers still, so sorry, I just dropped my camera. You have these officers still not being held accountable for their actions, still not being charged, still not being indicted. And it's just like, it's progress, but it's not enough, because you have to think about how long this has been happening in America almost since the conception, and how much farther we still have to go. Like, I feel like a lot of people get complacent in how much progress we've made, and we still have so much farther to go.
So you're absolutely right. And these bills do have consequences, unlike, for instance, a police officer, it's easier for prosecutors to prosecute. There are more specific things that are illegal. There are standards that have been changed so that police officers can't say, well, I killed him because I felt like my life was threatened, even though he was running away from me, things of that nature. They have a higher level of accountability now. And you're absolutely right that just naming bills or just even passing legislation doesn't work if it's not enforced, and doesn't work if there are no consequences to the actions that are taking place. And hopefully that this is something that is coming out of this particular piece of legislation, the accountability issue. And it even incentivizes states to do the kind of training, have the kind of accountability, do the kind of prosecutions and things of that nature, and investigate patterns and practices of discrimination. Something that was done under the Obama administration and was eliminated under the current administration. Because you're absolutely right. If you don't have the enforcement tools and you're not enforcing, then you're not going to expect change. Exactly. So what do you think are the next steps for those who have been engaged, particularly in Black Lives Matter activities and protests? Where do we go from here? Are there any
personally,
pardon?
I was going to say, personally, I believe education is one of the most important things that we need to focus on moving forward. I know a lot of times especially when it comes to like these Confederate statues, let's say, and we want to take them down because we don't want that lasting memory just like up in our communities in a park when people are walking their dogs and things like that. But yet people have so much animosity to us wanting to take them down. And I think they're just not educated enough to understand why. And you see in Germany, like how they deal with the Holocaust, they have memorials for the victims and not the people that performed those acts. They don't see like those generals like Hitler as like someone that they should put a statue above. Exactly. And they've taken the blame. They understand what happened. They've taken the blame. They provided these reparations to those victims, and they teach that part of history as something that should never be repeated. But in America, we don't do that. We teach it, it's like, this happened, okay, we're gonna move on. But we can't move on. It's so deep rooted in our history that you still see it today. And we need to educate and show these, like, especially like young people, even younger than us, because we're young, but even younger than us, that like we need to take this situation and see it differently. Like, America has to understand, like, this has happened and it cannot happen again. So educating and and taking the blame, like, this has happened. Don't just slide it under the rug and be like, oh, it happened 400 years ago, we're gonna forget about it. We can't forget about
it. Absolutely.
Thank you. That was very insightful. And what are young people thinking about the significance of voting and the significance of ensuring that they or their family answers the census questionnaire? Do they understand the implications, do you think?
I feel like a lot of young people understand the importance of voting and understand the importance of all these government things, but a form of voter suppression that is used is people thinking that their votes don't count, or they don't matter, they don't pertain into what's going on because of the electoral college and all those different terminologies they turn out to make politics seem confusing. And it kind of draws away from them thinking it's necessary rather than understanding how important it is.
And I think the entire system of voting, honestly, I think it might have to be changed. I know when I was telling my friends about it, especially when we were living at school, because we couldn't vote like in our district, we have to put in a mail-in vote. And I'm like trying to teach my friends about it, and they're just like, well, why, if I'm already registered to vote, why do I need to request a mail-in ballot, get the mail-in ballot, then mail that out? Like, it's just, it was just this long process that like is constantly in the back of our minds, and it makes it really, really difficult for young people, because I think for us, like, we're always on the move, we're always on to the next thing, and then like if we miss that deadline, it's like, oh darn, I missed that deadline, I can't vote anymore.
So if you vote in New Jersey, in at least right now in the primary, if you've registered, and when you registered declared yourself a Democrat or a Republican, you don't get an application in the mail, you get an actual ballot. So if you registered to vote and you said, I'm a Democrat, you got a Democratic ballot, and you have to just fill it out and send it back in. Now, if you registered to vote, but you never declared yourself as a Republican or a Democrat, then you got an application for a ballot, so that you had to declare which ballot you wanted. And so that's the only, at least for this election, that's the only time you would have had to deal with both an application and a ballot. And hopefully we'll be doing more things with voting by mail, because it is more convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. KAYLA, where do you think we stand in sort of next steps? What do you hope to see happen as a result of all this work and commitment and organizing that you all did?
I like what Desiree said. I think education needs to come next. I feel like our history is not taught in schools. The only reason I really know all of my history is because I went to an HBCU and I had classes. I had to read the books, but if I would have gone somewhere else, you know, I knew the basics, my parents taught me, but in detail, an HBCU taught me. So that's the only reason why I know so much, but I feel like education is important. And when it comes to people outside the Black community, I feel like when they look at American history and say even Native American history, they look at it as something separate. Like, that's what's in my mind. I don't know, but that's how I'm getting it. They think it's something like, oh, it happened in the past, but like
it happened multiple times.
Like entity, like, oh, slavery happened, but it was kind of like this, that's, you know, but it's not like, for example, in Germany, like, okay, this happened here and this is the situation, this is what we did. I feel like America thinks of it as a separate entity, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, it does make sense, KAYLA. As a matter of fact, there was a law that was passed in New Jersey decades ago called the Amistad legislation. And that legislation, as a result of that legislation, the curriculum was supposed to include the role of African Americans in the building of this country from the very beginning, so that students would have exposure to that information throughout the K through 12 experience. And it just hasn't happened that way yet, but there are still people who are pushing for that. Are you all familiar with Nicole Hannah-Jones's 1619 project that she did through the New York Times? She looks at slavery. She looks at 400 years from our being brought here to what's happening now, and she links slavery to the things that we're experiencing even now. And so it's really an amazing piece of work that if you get a chance to look at it, please do, because it will empower you, it'll anger you, but it also opens up your eyes to what's happening now and why certain things are happening. I am one of the co-founders of the Congressional Caucus on Black Women and Girls, and we look at things that you never really thought about too much. For instance, the rate of maternal death and infant mortality is much higher for Black women than it is for white women, even if they share the same socioeconomic background, same education background, live in the same communities, things of that nature. And so we look at it from a historical perspective.
I was just reading about that yesterday, reading all about it yesterday. And like modern, it all stems from like the slavery times, Black women, the experiments they were doing, lack of anesthesia, like all of that modern studies plays into right now. And it's a really deep issue. And that's, the medical system is another place that needs to be one of the next steps that we look at. Because it's not right.
But you're right when you said about the Native American experience and how it was just sort of captured in a moment and act as if it doesn't matter now. And it's the same thing with even, you know, our Hispanic communities and their contribution to making our country great. And, you know, a lot of our frontline workers right now who go out there every single solitary day so that we can stay home and work from home and do whatever we have to do, our essential workers, you know, are Black and brown. Mm-hmm. And so we look at the kinds of support that we need to give to them, recognizing two things. One, if they didn't do what they did, we wouldn't be able to be sheltering in or being safe or, you know, having access to the things that we need. But number two, recognizing that when they get up and come out every day, they're putting themselves and their families at risk and they need to be compensated. So, you know, it's those kinds of things that we look for in our policies. And thank God we got like 55 African Americans, and we must have about 15 or 20 Latino members and a couple of Asian members in Congress right now. So this is a moment of change and where we're all coming together around trying to make some things happen. So besides education, and education certainly is something that's coming up with, because under the jobs and justice agenda, education it figures in very prominently. In addition to that, what are some of the other things that we should be thinking about? How do you see the protests moving to another level, or ending, or pausing? Not even ending, but pausing.
The next thing with protesting is, I know July 7th, we're doing an economic blackout where you just don't spend any money. And I think that is something, like July 7th is the start, but I think that's something that can continue, whether it's every week or like once a month or whatever it may be. That is a really powerful statement that I think will really get some change. Because I mean, think about the bus boycott, like that is how they got that done, is by just not spending. So
absolutely, I kind of agree with what KYLA said. We have to realize that things don't happen overnight. So if we want change, we have to be willing to put in the hours and the time commitment that goes into change, whether it can be giving up spending money at certain establishments, certain businesses that don't respect simple human rights. Mm-hmm. You have to think about it on an aspect like that. We have to be able to come together and boycott if necessary.
Yeah, I think that's going on now though. Like, I feel like a little bit, like I'll see someone, I forget the name of the establishment, but someone will take a picture. Okay, they said this is, don't go here. And then it just spreads. So I feel like we are starting to do it like subconsciously, but yeah, I do see some progress with that.
The big one is July 7th. Yeah. Like everybody on July 7th.
And so buy what you need before that, but don't overbuy so that it compensates for not buying on the 7th. Okay, I get it. Yeah. And there are other platforms that need to be held accountable too, like Facebook. You know? So I know that we're taking an action with regard to our ads on Facebook, because Facebook isn't patrolling itself sufficiently as it relates to allowing such hate messages. And you don't want to support that which is counterintuitive to your security and safety. And so we got to be smarter about things like that, and where we buy and how we buy and things of that nature are very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so I guess go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing. I just think the emphasis on Black-owned businesses is also coming up more. I know that whenever I see like a new brand or something, I do that quick search, like, you know, who is this person that owns this? Or like, I've been trying to, you know, seek out those threads on Twitter of like people just putting their businesses under. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start buying my skincare products from here instead of like Sephora or Ulta or something like that, just because I know that, you know, my dollar is going to stay in our community longer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we have a lot of options these days, because we have a lot of Black entrepreneurs in a lot of different spaces. So we do have options.
It takes the simple step of wanting to go and put your money back into the Black community to make it seems like a little change, but it's a big difference into where our money is circulating. Because what does it say? dollars circulates in the Black community for 6 hours. In other communities, it circulates for days. That's something we need to do as a Black community to grow and be able to build substantial wealth for ourselves.
Well, I mean, I think that I've exhausted stuff I'd really like to pull out of you. I really want to know what we're missing when it comes time to communicate the urgency of now to your generation and even the younger people. So if you've got any sort of suggestions for us in general and in specific. And if you want to talk about how people can get involved with you, I'd like to know about that as well and share it.
In Lawrenceville, we're starting a Black Solidarity group to kind of give a support group for Black students, a place where we can come, where we can teach and do and things like that. So there's an Instagram for it. You can follow the Black Solidarity group. And yeah, as we continue to develop that, we'll probably be doing things like scholarships and hosting different events for empowerment for the youth in our community. So that's how you can stay involved with us, as well as soul sessions that me and Kayla will be doing again soon. So,
how often do you do those soul sessions?
This will be our second round. So we did it for the first time last year, and it came out, I think, like early summer, around May. So we're going to be doing it again, hopefully at the end of this month, filming. And that'll be me, Jada, and Kayla, as well as we have a friend, Aris, who will be performing. So it'll be a really good, discussion, community-based, with featuring a Black artist as well, which I think is just as important. So yeah, you can stay tuned that way.
All right, that's good to know. Anybody else have some ideas about how or have information about how you can be, you can recruit people can reach out to you, get engaged with you?
I feel like the best way to do that is just to use your resources. We have the internet, we have our free will to look up stuff and find places that action is being taken place, and to simply put, just educate yourself in what's going on in the world, how you play a part of it, and how you could be a part of the change, because you can't expect change to happen if you're just a bystander. You have to be a part of the change you want to see in the world.
Okay.
And
Well,
I think also that,
go ahead.
Sorry. I just think also, I don't want people to get too complacent. And I think that I'm like starting to see that now. And I try my best to, keep posting and keep educating and keep spreading the word about, stuff that's going on. But I feel like, I don't want people to get too comfortable, because when we get comfortable, we tend to lose sight. And then when we lose sight, the cycle keeps continuing, nothing will really get done. And like they said, like these boycotts and these protests that happened in the past, they lasted days, months, so we have to keep that and keep it going.
You're absolutely right about that, and I appreciate your saying that, because but I think we're at a different moment. And so if they know that you all are paying attention and we're hearing from you all in different ways, maybe not as a result of a protest, it might be in emails, or you may be blasting us on social media about stuff that we need to pay attention to. Whatever it is, people need to know that we are all still watching, engaged, and have expectations of change. And so what you all have done in your generation, and all those wonderful people that have engaged in a peaceful protest, you've given us the sort of the impetus, the backing to say, you see right back there? You see those people in the back there? That's why we're pushing this right now, because that's how we push change. They have to know that there are people that will hold them accountable, that there are consequences for inaction or the wrong action. Well, is Jamie, I don't see Jamie anymore. She may have dropped off, because I really wanted to talk a little bit about Plainfield, because you all are Mercer-based, Ewing-based, Lawrence-based, Trenton area-based. I want to commend you for what you're doing. I want to thank you for being so smart and so willing to give up of your time and your talent, and I'm sure your resources. I know you all heard that in church, because you're making a difference. I want to know what are your recommendations for folks getting involved in Plainfield? How do they reach out to you? What should they look for?
So I kind of mentioned this beforehand, how we as a group, for our Black Lives Matter protests, we didn't want to lose our momentum. So we started our grassroots program called Plainfield Youth for Change. And it basically covers a lot. It covers a lot about education, educating the youth about voting, about civics and government, because a lot of the youth, we're seeing that they really they don't really find as much importance to that. So we want to like spread that awareness that their vote does count, that their vote does matter, and that they do count on the census. And basically we want to also give back to our community and show solidarity for other groups like LGBTQIA+, for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. So we're in the works on that right now, and we also have the support of our local freeholders, of our council members of Plainfield as well, and we also have an Instagram page too. I don't remember the full name, but if you look up Plainfield Youth for Change, you'll probably see it pop up. But that's definitely one of the ways that we are trying to connect with our youth in Plainfield and for in general, just for the Plainfield community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder if you all have any kind of brief parting words for us. Oh, let me just ask one question. Let me get this out of the way. Do you think that your generation knows how significant the census is in ensuring that resources come into our community, whether it's for schools or housing or economic development or law enforcement or whatever, and that the information that is turned in on the census can never be used by anyone or any agency to do any action against anyone, whether it's a person who isn't a citizen or whatever? That information cannot be used. It's only aggregated for purposes of determining how much money comes into a community. Do you think that they know that, that your generation knows that?
No.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't believe so. I learned, well, I always
Even I didn't.
Yeah, I knew what the census, I always knew what it was, but I didn't actually understand what it was until, you know, I'm 23, I'm older, and now I'm in the state, so I kind of see the significance of it. But if this was made 2 years ago, I would have no idea.
You know, it also determines how many representatives you have in the House of Representatives. You'll always have 2 senators, but you won't always necessarily have the same number of House members. That's based upon population. So the census is so vitally important if we want to make sure that, you know, we have the kind of representation we want, as well as the ability to support our children with after-school programs and Head Start and things of that nature, build decent housing, make sure that we get the transportation that we need, the roads and the bridges and things of that nature. All of that comes about as a result of what we turn in and what they determine based on the census. So it is critical that people send in their census this year. In fact, I think we have until August to send it in, and then by September or October, people may be knocking on the doors, but given that we have no idea what this virus is going to be, this pandemic is going to be, that's not going to be something that's going to be encouraged, knocking on somebody's door, because you are probably as reluctant as I am to let someone in my house who hasn't sheltered in with me. And if you're not concerned, you should be concerned.
Right.
Wear a mask.
Yeah, well, you should. It's serious. And if you look at the data that's coming out now, young people are being found to have the virus, even though they may not have the symptoms. So without knowing it, you could be spreading it to your grandmother if she's in your company, or your mother or father or someone else can be infected and you won't even know. So be careful, please. Please wear your mask when you're out. I don't care. Don't, if you got to breathe, just pull it out and go, but don't take it down. Let me have some parting words from you all. Tell me what you need me to know, what you'd like me to know, and tell me what you're looking for. Let me start with Lucinda. Okay, let me go in this order. Lucinda and KYLA, Desiree, KAYLA, and JAIME.
Some parting words that I would definitely say is that know your role in everything going on right now. Play your part and don't let up, and stand for what you believe for, or what you believe in.
So that's good. That's cool. I'm ready. Desiree, I think I said next, and then KYLA, JAIME.
I just want to say thank you for this conversation. I think that it's really important because, you know, people can see us at protests and try to talk to us, but having this like forum where we can actually like get our emotions and our opinions out is like really important. So I want to say thank you. But also I just want to tell everybody who's watches, you know, just keep moving and keep pushing and get educated and everything we've talked about, you know, vote and like fill out the census and all of this, you know, it's a lot, but we need to do all of these things if we want to see significant change.
Cool, that's good.
My last words would be, you know, keep fighting, keep believing in this mission. Also educate yourself, because everything we're doing isn't 100% new. We've done this before, we've been down this path. So educate yourself, learn from the advancements that we've done in the past and how we can mold that into changing things now. There's no reason to be ignorant anymore. We have social media and YouTube. So please educate yourself and keep fighting.
Thank you. All right. KYLA?
Yeah, everything they just said. Know your role in the movement and keep fighting, you know, keep signing petitions, keep educating yourself and others and the people around you. Personally, I'm an artist first and foremost, so I'm pivoting more towards, like I said, video content. So you can follow me on Revolution Media to stay tuned on Soul Sessions when that comes out, and also hopefully a documentary sometime in the near future. So it's just continue to pay attention and stay woke.
Good luck with that. Yeah, that sounds great. JAIME?
I just want to say thank you so much for including me in this conversation. My parting words will be, and more particular to people who are non-Black, to please to try to empathize and listen to people and their struggles. Do not dismiss what is going on. Definitely educate yourself if you want to see change, if you want to move forward. And to everybody who's in this fight, who's a part of the revolution, to definitely to stay perseverant. Do not ever think that your voice does not matter, because it does. Your voice is the most powerful weapon, as well as knowledge, in order to incite that change and to be able to move forward for a better future for humankind.
Thank you. I tell you, the five of you are amazing, and it's been my blessing to have this conversation with you, to get to know you. I'm going to follow you and see what's happening. I am a resource for you, so you all now know how to reach out to me, and you know who I am. And I'm going to say that it is most important that we don't give in, and we don't give up, and we don't lose hope. Because as long as we can speak up or stand up or walk or write or call or whatever we have to do, as long as we're willing to align ourselves and coalesce with people who may not look like us but certainly share our values, and if we're also willing to try to bring along some of those who just aren't quite sure what they believe in, but to let them see the light through who we are and what we do, then we can change this country. And we very much need that change right now. So we're relying very much on your generation. Believe me when I tell you, you all have inspired me. And I am grateful that you took some time out. I wish you the very best. I want you to wear your masks. I want you to be safe. And I know, I guess, Miss Artist, you can have an artistic mask. Just make sure you have it on. Yeah. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.